Welcome to the Media Leader Podcast. I'm Jack Benjamin. Last month, our annual Future of Brands conference took place at 180 Studios in London, convening industry leaders to unpack what brand marketers need to be equipped for our rapidly changing media ecosystem. Hot topics included outcomes measurement, the importance of building cultural value, a rejection of short-termism, and, of course, AI. At the event, it was my pleasure to moderate a panel on one of the trickiest nascent problems marketers and their agencies are facing: how brands are showing up in large language models, or LLMs. Chatbots like ChatGPT and Perplexity, Google's Gemini, and its AI overviews and AI mode features. With the advent and adoption of AI search, consumers' online research and discovery behaviors are shifting. How can brands win authority in this new space? What source materials are LLMs pulling from, and how will marketers seek to influence those? Laura Kell is Chief Data and Product Officer at Havas Media Network. Marcos Angelides is MD of L'Oreal Lab and Head of AI Operations at Publicis Media. Olya Dyachuk is Global Media and Data Director at Heineken. We spoke about early efforts in generative engine optimization, how AI search is forcing agencies to reconsider team organizations, the importance of benchmarking how your brand shows up in LLMs, and what marketers need from AI companies as the likes of OpenAI start to embrace advertising. This is our conversation. I hope you enjoy. This is actually, I didn't realize when this panel was being put together that all of you had worked together before.
Yes.
So this is actually a reunion, so please definitely get closer.
Omnicom reunion here.
What an exciting panel this is. There's so much change going on as this entire session is sort of spoken to with regard to how AI is impacting things. And I thought it would be good to sort of start by setting the scene. AI search is becoming a more common consumer habit, be it via chatbots, be it via Google's AI overviews. And so I think it would be helpful just to sort of start going down the line, Olya, you first, in terms of where your organizations are, in terms of your ability to understand how your brand is showing up in LLMs at all.
I think the starting point is to understand whether people understand how LLM works and what's the impact of it. Yeah. I think we were shocked when we just started talking about LLMs and found out that the most popular use case is the therapy. We're like, okay, if people go there for therapy, they probably go there to search for alcohol as well. Yeah. It's like, okay, not for code of conduct right now. But it is true. Like in the US, 31% of people who use LLMs go there to actually check out something about alcohol. And they're like, okay, clearly there is something there. And a lot of FMCG companies, I think, weren't really on the SEO journey at the time. So I think Geo Journey gives them a second opportunity to get in and see what's happening out there and be present. But I hear from a lot of my peers that there was a very quick realization that LLMs are here to stay. There is a really quick realization that you need to go there and explore. And we are doing it, like probably a lot of businesses. We've been piloting it since last year. We've been piloting it for a variety of use cases, from basic, and we've been working with Denso to start with to do it on our Heineken 00, from things like planning your campaign and generating insights about your consumers and their searching patterns, all the way to actually looking whether it could give us any insights into product. Yeah, so the barriers, the innovation, the interests, etc., to help to shape the strategy. Whether it's going to work for everything, we don't know, but that's what we are doing. We've been piloting use cases and currently looking into how we're going to scale it faster. Gotcha.
And Marcos, Laura, what types of tools, what types of information are you able to give to clients today?
So there's quite a few tools. A lot of it focuses on benchmarking, which I still think is the most important part. Back to your question. I mean, there's no... any strategy starts with the intelligence and knowing where you are, how good you're doing or not. So the benchmarking, the auditing is key, because you don't even know where you're turning up yet. And sort of, to identify what areas do you want to be in, how well are you performing, how well are your competitors performing, and then you can start to sort of figure out what do we do next. So different agencies have different tools. At Publicis, we have a few. We have model sites. We have one called Cited. It allows you to track thousands and thousands of searches across different LLMs, and it's personalized. So different audiences, because if we all ask this exact same question to an LLM, we'll get very, very different answers, which is wonderful for us, is awful for brands, because you're looking at almost 1 billion different permutations. It doesn't make benchmarking easy, but it can be done. Now, the reason I say about starting there is some brands won't be performing well. And that's fine, and then you can figure out what to do. But some brands, and it happens more than you'd think, some brands are already doing very well without doing very much. And then it's sort of figuring out where you go from there. So I work with L'Oreal. I can't talk kind of officially about what's happening, but third-party studies have shown L'Oreal brands do very well in social search, within AI SEO already.
And why might that be?
So I know we're going to come to this later, but a lot of it, again, I can't officially say, but those reports, those third-party reports, do note the success that the L'Oreal brands have within social media. And when you start to look then about the sources of information that LLMs will pull, most of it is UGC. Probably 8 out of the 10 top searches will be some form of UGC website. So it's a really lovely path, and that becomes really simple. The 2 things, benchmarking and understanding the analysis of where you are, and then looking at ways you can bring brilliant teams together, particularly social and search teams who've always worked in silos. And I've never really understood the rationale for that. But AI SEO, I think, is just another reason to finally start bringing those teams together. It's one of the easiest wins you can have as an agency, as a brand, to dramatically improve what you're doing. Before you even do anything new, just bring those teams together and get them to start talking to each other.
So yeah, we've I think this is one case where at Havas there's a benefit to being one of the smaller, bigger agencies, because I think in kind of emerging markets you need to be quick. So this time last year we launched our Brand Insights AI tool as part of Converged. That focused on looking across all of the different large language models and seeing how they compare, which is important because it's not the same answer across all of them. So that benchmarking stuff, we kind of nailed that. What we're looking at now is how we optimize. So how do we optimize the content that we put out there so that we improve visibility in the models? And quite right, it's different sources now. So it's a lot about social content, like Reddit's very important, TikTok's very important, and making sure that the brand is visible there. Now, how do you optimize that? It becomes about producing lots and lots of content and then measuring incrementality and seeing what's actually working to improve your visibility. I think that the next frontier, which I don't think anyone's really properly understanding yet, and the huge benefit of the large language models is that you can really start to understand the decision-making process. So you can track, because you're tracking conversations, you can start to see how do people make decisions and understand a bit more about consumer needs and what people want from products. So that's the area now that we're starting to explore. But I think that's the really interesting part when we start to see the operating model about how we work with the models to see, what information is going to be made available so that we can better understand human behaviour. So I think that's a huge opportunity that's still the one that's untapped at the moment.
And Olya, when would you want to use all these products and tools and knowledge that agencies offer versus trying to in-house anything?
First, I think I would like to add to what guys were saying. What I wonder, I've started my career in boring SEO, when everyone feels it's boring. You go in front of brand manager and they're like, oh my God, what are you going to do something with my website? Move on, I want to produce TVC. Good, we still want to do that, still want to produce nice video. But indeed, with Geo, great opportunity for brand managers saying, now we can produce shitloads of content, wonderful. But I wonder really how much of that content production we will have to do to push discoverability in Geo is genuinely good quality content that we want people to see, rather than using yet again AI, because that's what we're going to be using, obviously, like everybody would do that, to just produce a lot of content like they used to do with a lot of link building and buying in order to push yourself up in SEO, in search engines. So what I think, not worry necessarily, but watch out how to approach Geo in the way that it genuinely creates good experience for consumer and does not bring reputational risk for the brand. Because there is lack of trust and there is lots of ways and UGC that can impact how your brand shows up, and giving the power right now to creators, to partners, to produce content on your behalf is not easy already. So you can maintain your brand integrity while doing it with third-party tools, third-party agencies who you give up the power to give them opportunity to create even more on your behalf. I think that's going to be a risk for brands and brand managers and the challenge. But on the other hand, back to your question, I think it's like with anything about in-housing versus leveraging technology outside of your business. Does it deliver efficiency or not? Is this strategically the right thing for us to own or not? And then are we operationally set up as a business to do that? Yeah. So we are beer brewers and brand builders. That's how we talk about ourselves. We are not tech company. However, there are particular elements of technology that we decided we will own. We're going through big commercial transformation right now. And we decided we're going to own our own workflow. We're going to own our DAMs. We're going to own some of the planning tools, etc. But the rest, we came to our agencies and said, please, can you build on it? Because everything else we are happy for you to bring. So I'm of that support. Agencies have amazing tools, and we should be absolutely leveraging those where it makes sense.
I think it's because people talk a lot about search and social coming together, but I also think like thinking about PR and bringing the PR teams in, because it's about kind of, good quality content going out. And just how we optimize it is just going to be different. You know, how we build websites is going to be different. I think it's much more now about putting, detailed information, detailed specifications, so that the information is there on the website that can be pulled into the models, that you're presenting yourself well on your website with lots of information about the product.
In terms of if you want to pull search, social, PR together, who's leading that effort then? I mean, I think it raises an organizational question of, okay, if best practice is bringing different parts of your agency or different parts of your own organization together, who's in charge?
Brand
is in charge.
I mean, who runs P&L? In the sense that delivery is delivery, but who makes decision about the brand is the brand lead. So if you can't bring your agencies together in any process to deliver it, then what's your role? Yeah, you run P&L, you decide what's right on your brands, and you pick the best agency partners to do it for you. But that's personal client opinion, obviously. I mean, clients.
Marcos, what's your view?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it comes down to is the KPIs and what you're set up to do, both agency side and client side. And we have the same thing with brand versus performance. And you can end up having completely siloed teams who are being incentivized to do different things. And therefore, everything starts to break down. And we all know it's wrong, but for various reasons, it still continues to happen a lot more than I think we'd like to admit sometimes. So a lot of it is just getting strategically back to what is the business case? What are you ultimately trying to do? And then the role. It sounds obvious, but it still needs to happen more. Then a lot of it's just communication and behavior. We've got so used to just not talking to each other and sharing things that it's just crazy. And then you end up duplicating stuff anyway and doing random things. And then there's a certain level, and I don't think it's the search team or performance team's fault. They've sort of been always, I feel, boxed into an area of feeling downstream. We always talk about funnel as though it runs one way. I would love to see search teams be more punchy and more confident. They sit on insights that should power everything that the marketing division does. And going back to Olya's point about TV, it's great to do TV ads. I mean, if you are not talking to your search teams at the insight generation point, you are missing the biggest opportunity. That team sits on insights and cultural context that is absolutely perfect, and it's all yours. Absolutely look externally at different sources and what's happening in culture and what's going on social media. But the insights and signals those teams have, performance teams as well as just search, is literally a goldmine. And getting those teams and creatives to understand how well they could actually work together, it changes everything. And again, that's why I'm excited by AI, because it's forcing all of us to come together more, because if you don't, it's just an obvious miss that your competitors are going to make. In the same way that media and creative, those divisions, all of these things are breaking down now. We've moaned about it for 20 years, I know we're all worried about AI and where it's going in some ways, but honestly, the opportunities to bring everything together finally is kind of here, which I think is pretty amazing.
Yeah, that's what we are doing with the village model at Havas. So it's everyone's in the same building as a start, but then we've built Converge to be an operating model where everybody is kind of anchored to the audience. So if everyone's working to a common understanding of who the audience is, and of course everyone's doing a different thing in terms of trying to engage the audiences and understand them. But so long as we have a consistent view of audience that's powering all the different agencies, I think that's kind of the first step. But I was also, in response to what you said there, Marcus, I think what's really interesting about the large language models is that, people use search and the chatbots in very different ways. So search, you're trying to get to a known destination quickly. You type in hairdresser near me or something like that. Whereas with the large language models, you're using it to guide decisions. So you're using it for therapy, you're using it for decisions that might feel daunting, and otherwise you'd have had a really long research phase, evaluation phase. The thing that the chatbot can do now is, because it's conversational, you can start to, first of all, the research and evaluations all happening in one place, potentially. So the opportunity for measurement is huge there. We always talk about the messy middle. Or maybe this is the time to tidy it up. If we can see everything happening all in the same place. But then the big question is, in terms of access to data, what will we be able to see in terms of understanding how that decision-making process works?
But also right now, if you look at I was discussing one of the panels, I can't remember where, I think that the actually audience who uses LLMs are predominantly Western people, and are predominantly people who are well-educated or decently educated. So if you think about trying to uncover insights from emerging markets, value markets, that's not there yet. So I think that's one interesting point, is almost piloting on what we know with the audiences we've got, but knowing that is not necessarily yet an answer to if you want to get insights from Nigeria, for instance. Although Nigeria growing like mental when it comes to digital and everything else, like as one of the markets that are emerging. Yeah.
I wanted to raise the broader trust issue, because you mentioned that people are having conversations with chatbots, and yes, you can hopefully measure that and get data signals, but also surely that would undermine consumer trust in the models if they know that advertisers can listen in on their conversations. And there's also an issue of trust with, are people trusting a model to give them a product recommendation, or are they aware, because we're, decades now into SEO, that maybe this was influenced by something that was paid for, or, all the work that you're doing essentially to try and get your brands to show up. Is that a problem? And if so, how should brands sort of go about handling that? Marcos?
I don't think it's as much of a problem as we make it out to be. And the reason being, I think it's easy to sort of jump to that. There are concerns, there are worries, I get that. But I would say people don't not trust advertising. Advertising's never had a trust issue, I would argue. Bad advertising has a trust issue. There is a massive difference. I think we're sometimes very apologetic within the advertising world of we're really sorry, we're just gonna show you our ad quickly and then get out the way. And people always respond very positively to anything that's relevant, that's useful, that's entertaining. They just don't want to be misled and lied to, and something jump in the middle of what they're doing and force them to do something that they don't. I mean, it's really obvious, but that's always been the case. In terms of Google search, the reason that we click on the paid ads isn't because it's being forced upon us. It's because 9 times out of 10, it's the most relevant answer. They get annoyed with that just sort of 10% that isn't.
Just to push back a little bit, some of the best practice that you're discussing, PR, doing more work on Reddit, because Reddit is one of the main sources that Reddit certainly likes to brag. Plurality of models like to pull a lot from them, as well as showing up on making your website better, social media, as you mentioned. All of these things are not necessarily easily labeled as, people know that when they ask a chatbot a question, that's the source that they're pulling from.
Yes, and then that's transparency. And that's that I would organize all of that into bad advertising, or actually that's with a lot of the guidelines coming out now, that's illegal advertising. If you're trying to hide, whether it's an influencer that you're paying and not telling people, through to somehow trying to induce poison a response in an LLM to say something that it probably shouldn't. I mean, that's just awful behaviours that we know that, at some point you're going to get caught out, and the impact to your brand wasn't worth the ROI that somewhere you might have felt in the meantime. So I'm deliberately being provocative. Otherwise, I think we'll all sit here going, yes, trust is an issue. So sort of forgive me on that side, but it's also...
Now you're asking for forgiveness. Wrong behavior.
But I think we could get, there are so many areas we need to make sure that there is trust in advertising by getting rid of bad practice. But we need to forget that is bad practice. That isn't what I would say, I hope, all of us here do. And I think it's about illustrating the brilliant way that you can use advertising to improve the user experience rather than just lying to people. It's really simple.
I mean, it's interesting, the ad bots, and I don't know if you call it that yet, but where do you place the ad? So some of I think it's ChatGPT mostly is placing the ad in the first message in the conversation, whereas others are bringing in the message on the 10th, bringing in the advert on the 10th message. It's I do think, I think because people are fundamentally using the large language models in a different way, they're going there when they're unsure. They're using search when they know where they want to get to. They want to get there quickly. They're using the large language models when it's a decision that they're not sure about. They want to, and I think to place the ad incorrectly, too quickly, or it will, because you're using it in a different way, I think it will erode trust. I guess the other part of the trust is, can you trust the results that the chatbots are giving back? I've had quite a few experiences where I've taken something to be true and it hasn't been,
And you only know if you know.
Yeah. Really specific things that I've been asking, and then the recommendations come back on what I'm asking for example. But then also, I suppose it's the trust of advertisers to the platforms as well. Can we trust the data that we're getting back? How much data will we get back in terms of how the models are working, the impact that they're having? And that's going to be a really interesting thing that I think brands are going and agencies as well are going to need to focus on, is how do we build that new operating model so that we can have transparency as well in what's working in the models, as well as delivering relevant content to people.
I actually asked Claude and ChatGPT, what's the level of trust of consumers into you? I was received very consistent answer, 50 to 60%, depending on the market.
Okay.
With the reasons, one of the first reasons being fear of loss of jobs, of opportunities, then things like transparency, and then the wrong answers, whatever, yeah? And again, going back to, I think, what we've been doing for years, as Marcus as well said, LLM is just yet another environment. And that environment, based on what Laura said, you need to treat it as any other consumer experience. If you have a good ad on your Netflix, on the, Vogue website or whatever, if it's a nice ad that is placed to your interest in the right moment, you're like, wonderful, yeah, great. Then I'm going on holidays, here is wonderful bikinis, like wonderful, good timing. But if it's disrupting at the moment, as you said, what I don't want to say, that's different. And we can create that environment only if indeed advertisers and agencies, I think, work with those LLM companies and AI companies to create that space together. But also, going back to beginning, by trying to ensure transparency and control over what goes in. Yeah, if LLM for consumers, whether it's the AI results for us as a business, we know how it works with data, good in, good out. Yeah, or bad in, bad out. We're not going to swear otherwise. Same here. Yeah, we need to ensure that information that goes in is good enough for consumers to use, for us to use, because we also want good experience.
What does the relationship look like right now between brands, agencies, and some of the LLM platforms, the AI companies? We know that OpenAI has actually introduced ads on the platform. I don't know if anyone on the panel has worked with them or wanted to work with them, or at least spoken with them about how to get their data involved, but also some of their competitors as well. How is that relationship shaping up, and what does it mean for brands?
It's very small at the moment.
Yeah.
So it's a teeny tiny number of the, like, I think it's like some 1% have got adverts in them. I don't think anyone knows what the new operating model is yet, to be honest. And I think that everyone's working it out. It would be wrong to say that we know exactly how it's going to work. I would expect that initially it's quite closed because most emerging platforms are quite closed at the start. But I'd say that the platforms that become more interoperable will be the ones that will be more successful.
It's so at a group level, because a lot of it's happening in the US and it's quite small. It's tests, and right now I think it's more on the brand and innovation side. You know, we talk about search. It's not really yet sort of part of a search campaign and what's the ROI and what's the TPM and how are we going to measure it, and is it, you know, it's we should do it to show that we're innovative and that we're driving things forward as a brand. Then we can start getting the initial outputs and start saying, is it worth it? What should we do going forward? The other side, there is a difference between the platforms. You know, Google, we've all worked with Google for a long, long time. They have, you know, we understand how they operate. They also have a business model based on advertising. They understand brand safety, which is then the biggest part of this that often we forget. So going back to your point about trust, the brand safety side is key. There is, as much as you can, a lot of trust in Google because of the history and what they do, and then what they're starting to roll out. With OpenAI, with Anthropic, it's exciting. They still have to earn a lot of trust from the advertiser and marketer side. It's great that they can do it, but you don't know the questions and the responses that are appearing in ChatGPT. It's really exciting to be there, but I think a lot of brands are like, before we do that, we need to make sure that the worst cannot happen. I believe that they can. They're working. They're getting a lot of people on board. It's absolutely possible, but they're still at that earning trust stage. It's still very, very early versus, you know, some of the bigger competitors.
I would agree, indeed. It's not an ROI play. Everyone understands this. Like with any new platform that just emerges, as an alcohol brand, we normally get access to things much later because age gating is non-existent yet, really, properly in LLMs. Overall, I think from outside, personally, I'm quite enjoying watching the whole OpenAI, Anthropic, and Google kind of advertising efforts, like how they're building their business. I think it's actually very fascinating and speaks a lot about the culture of their businesses and about the direction that they want to take their businesses and services to. I think that the traditional advertising, as of placing yourself into the LLM, probably will be one of the models. I'm more interested actually to seeing other models that they can offer that will be insights generating, for example, whatever, the real-time tracking, like what are other services beyond just advertising and that we can gain out of it. And I'm curious who's going to come out with something like that instead of just putting the ads out there, which is also great. Trust me, we've had conversations indirectly already with OpenAI, and indeed being alcohol, it's tougher. But we are curious to see where it goes. I'm personally very curious to see how they're going to develop their businesses. With that said, back to Guy's point, the transparency will be key because there it's very hard to control where you show up. And for any advertiser who already do a lot of ad verification and pays for it and invests money in making sure you appear next to the safe content, next to the decent content, you need to be very careful. And I bet there will be then ad verification companies are going to start coming and saying, how we make sure that actually you are safe in that space, guys. So there's going to be the whole ecosystem built around it, basically.
Olya, you mentioned sort of at the top the importance of not necessarily just spamming all your content across the web and hoping that then it shows up really well in these LLMs. What's your advice? What's sort of a best practice guide? What's the right percentage to show up on Reddit versus other social platforms versus having your website in order versus any other PR, talking to journalists and having us write content about your brands? What's the right balance?
You remind me of me when I went to actually Claude and I asked Claude to create a whole analysis. Basically, I asked the geo-analysis for Birra for Claude to do for all LLMs. Done it pretty well in the space of 3 minutes. Pretty good, huh? So, yeah, if I could answer this question, I probably would have owned the company or something. So I do not have the answer. I think the answer is to explore, to test, pick the right partners, pick the right tools. Love the benchmarking part, definitely. Yes. Keep your eyes benchmarking. I don't think there is new news. The how you do it is the way you do it in any new channel in advertising. What my advice will be is being very mindful of the brand and the balance of the power that you have to give up. I think not every brand is there like based on the brand positioning or the culture, whatever, to be able to give more to creators, to partners, and give them freedom to create on your behalf. I think it will be a big shift. We need to prepare to the fact that even more will be needed for us to collaborate with partners, creators, with our consumers to do that. And I would watch that out. I would prepare for how to create an operating model that enables to create a systematic approach to that, while maintaining your brand positioning, maintaining your safety, and keep driving the business outcomes that you need.
Marcos, Laura, last words?
Yeah, just say, I mean, it keeps changing. The platforms are deliberately keeping us on our toes. So sort of even when you do benchmarking, going like, that's it, that's our strategy for the next year. It's, Reddit first, then Wikipedia. It will change constantly because they don't want people misusing the platforms. So, choose the platforms because it's good for a number of reasons. Be adapt enough to change. And then C, it will open up new areas. I was reading a little while ago, LinkedIn is weirdly good, particularly right now. Anything that's sort of information-based, expertise-based, most people don't talk about LinkedIn as a search output or part of an AI strategy. It's actually very good. So if you needed just that little final nudge to start posting endlessly on LinkedIn, there you go.
Ja, I think that it's the last, I know we haven't run out of time, but experts, I think so. I think journalists should become more important in this. It's people, it's not just about asking everyone. It's you want good quality advice.
I missed that.
So it'll be over to you, Jack.
I think that's a perfect place to leave it. Thanks so much. Olya, Marcos, Laura, it's been a pleasure. Thanks so much for your time. Thank you for listening to the Media Leader Podcast. Our executive producer is me, Jack Benjamin. Special thanks to our production partner, Trisonic. You can find all our episodes wherever you get your podcasts or on our website at themedialeader.co.uk. But do please remember to subscribe to be notified when we release our next episode. You can also subscribe to our newsletter at The Media Leader to receive daily coverage of all the biggest stories in media and advertising. From all of us at The Media Leader, I'm Jack Benjamin. See you next time.